Hey guys, this is RolloutReviews with RolloutReviews doing a surprise Let's Build. This time it is the Hasbro version of Dragogale. Now, I've already done a review on Dragogale. In fact, I've already done a Let's Build on Dragogale, but that was the Takara version, the original Japanese release. The only reason I got that in the first place is because I could not find this one. It's a pretty elusive B-Daman because, as I recall, it was released towards the tail end of the series before it was cancelled in the US, so it just wasn't distributed as well as some other B-Daman. In fact, the variant Camo Gale, which is a green version of this, is much more widely available. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to get the US version is because pretty much all of my other Battle Beat-em-on, with the exception of Excel Leon and Dragogale, are the Hasbro releases. So I sort of wanted them all to match because, honestly, I don't imagine this is going to be too different from the Japanese release. But I guess we'll find out and, directly compare exactly what the difference is here. So that'll be kind of interesting. Just looking at the product images here, I feel like the hold parts and the trigger might be red instead of orange for some reason. I know the hold parts on the Hasbro releases are shaped slightly differently than the Takara releases. The colors might be different. The stickers don't look too different at all, which is kind of neat. This also might come with a blaster beat-a-ball, the plastic beat-a-balls. It doesn't say. It does say actually one Dragogale beat-a-ball, so that's good. It'll match the other releases because even though I have the Japanese version of Excel Leon, back in the day I did get the Hasbro release and it did come with its own special little marble here. So it'll be nice to actually have all 5 of these special Super 5 marbles. Of course, Excel Leon here. Then you got Samurai Phoenix. Then you got Knight Cavalry. And what's this guy? Shield Giga, and then finally I'll have the 5th one here, so that'll be good. Unless it just doesn't come with that, because it's not pictured anywhere, and if it comes with a glass marble, I'll just eat my words here, and that'll be kind of disappointing, but I don't think that will be the case. Honestly, there isn't really much reason for me to have a second one, because like I said, I don't imagine they'll be too different. I mean, there's actual reason to get the Japanese version of Excel Leon because it's very, very different to the US release, and the US release doesn't come with like the most important pieces of this beat-em-on. But like I said, I think the US version is a really good substitute for the Japanese one. So like I said, it isn't very beneficial to have both, but I guess we'll find out here. So let's open it up. Is it taped on both sides? Yes, it is. So, let's see what we got inside. A red battle pin. I mentioned in my Lightning Con Let's Build that Lightning Con was one of the only releases that came with a red one of these, but it turns out Dragogale came with one as well. So, there you go. Obviously, Lightning Con is a little bit easier to find. Maybe just a little bit. I don't know. I just haven't seen too many of the Hasbro Dragogales on the internet, so that's why I'm assuming it's fairly rare. Yes, in fact, we do have the Dragogale beat-a-marble here. Kind of very similar to the Bakurikuso marbles, so we'll do a comparison with those here in a second. You also do have orange parts, so I don't know why I assumed those would be red. Like I said, they just kind of looked red in the product images, but let's take a look at the runners themselves and take a look at this marble. Closer look, at least. If I can get this open here. Is it a different color than the Japanese version? I don't know. Let's find out. This is being very difficult. Okay, so here we go. Better not lose that spring. The springs on the Japanese versions are actually a little bit different. They're slightly more cone-shaped, which does make the trigger kind of go uneven here. Kind of annoying. I almost like the US springs a little bit better. And here is the color of the orange side by side. This is actually a little more vibrant, and I kind of like that a little more, honestly. Here is the marble, and like I said, here it is compared with, this is Bakuso, and here it is with Rakuso. I think that's right. And it's facing the opposite direction, and it actually is a slightly different dragon. So that's cool. It is its own little design. I was afraid it would be kind of like a like a recolor of one of these two, but no, it is its own little design, so that is very cool. Green is an interesting choice of color here, though. Here are the body parts here. This bag feels like it's made out of a weird material, different than I'm used to, but oh well, here you go. Here is the IBA body. I realize I made that mistake several times in the last couple of Let's Builds. I said IBA body correctly the first couple of times, but then for some reason I was mistaken for the rest of the builds and said IBO. A lot of people in the comments made the joke that I've been watching too much Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, but yeah, I don't know. In my head, I just thought it was International B-Daman Organization rather than International B-Daman Association, but oh well. So yeah, you got the completely black inner frame there, orange instruction sheet, and a little pamphlet here, which I thought only came out with the earlier Beat-A-Mon releases. So maybe this guy was released earlier? That is strange, because I do not remember that at all. And as you can see here, I mean, Dragogale is certainly not on the lineup. So maybe he was released fairly early on, but just wasn't included in the checklist here. I don't know. That is weird. But yeah, here you have the stickers, which, like I said, don't seem very different from the Japanese stickers rather, at all. Let's actually take a look at these runners before I get into the instructions. The runtime for this segment here is already going rather long, so I kind of just want to get the more important things out of the way. There's actually quite a few more pieces, I feel, on Dragogale than there is on a normal Beat-A-Mon. A normal Beat-A-Mon, what does that even mean? I don't know. On the average Beat-A-Mon, I suppose. Got rubber parts here, which is, again, no different from the Japanese version. Let's see how the colors match. They're actually very, very similar. Like, very, very similar. Maybe this is like a little more purple, and this is like a slightly deeper, more blue purple. I don't know, it's very difficult to see on camera, so maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know, but here is the head parts, the claws, the shoulders. Did they dull the edges, I wonder? Because that was something I marveled at with this guy, how sharp the little spikes on the helmet here are. Did they... It does not really seem like it. No, it does not seem like they actually dulled those at all. So that is kind of interesting and surprising in a way. Here are the magazine and barrel pieces, which will be kind of cool because I can now add on to the magazine or the barrel of this guy even further. So that's sort of cool. It's kind of a system where you can keep adding onto things, which is very cool. And then here is the tail and the little extra bits of the magazine. So let's take a quick look at the instructions, and then we'll do a cut, get all these pieces cut out, and we'll return to build the thing. So no ads for any additional Beat-A-Mon on this side. Or on this side. Let's see what it has to say about Dragogale. It's got the Typhoon Loader and the Tornado Tunnel. So that's really cool. Extend for long-range accuracy, and fully extend for a 5-shot rapid-fire capacity. That's something I kind of like about Dragogale, or I don't know, it's kind of a weird thing about Dragogale. Just kind of how this B-Daman renders Bakurikuso kind of completely useless, because it basically accomplishes the same thing as Bakurikuso in a single package, rather than being a fusion of two B-Daman. But anyway, let's bring the camera down slightly, get a quick look at all the pieces here. And once I have all of these cut out, I will return and we can finally get to building it. Okay, back and ready to roll here, but before I jump right in, I did want to make a few comparisons and also talk about something that I noticed as I started cutting these pieces out of the runners. So, first of all, here is a comparison with a couple of the parts that are slightly different. The orange runner here is a fair bit different. The trigger is shaped exactly the same way, but you will notice, while they both have the Takara 03 stamp on this side, the Hasbro version has an extra stamp over here on this side. On the Takara version, it's blank. On Hasbro, it has the 2004 Hasbro. But the triggers are shaped exactly the same. This is just a convenient place for them to mark the difference on the runner. The real difference with the orange parts is the hold parts here. Now, it's not wildly apparent, but if I do put them side by side here, the Takara one is slightly bigger. It's slightly wider here, and that's why the Takara Helio Breaker functions a little bit better than the Hasbro version. You can see it's just, there's micrometers of length there, but it does make a difference slightly. Also, the holes here are slightly different as well. I don't know why this is the case. They don't seem to perform any differently. But it is worth noting. So there is that. Another thing worth noting, and something I mentioned earlier, is that the springs are different as well. This is the Hasbro spring. This is the Takara spring. You can see it's a little bit more cone-shaped, whereas this is, more straight and sort of what you're used to seeing nowadays, I suppose. But this one here has one end that is slightly smaller than the other, and I don't know if that has any performance advantages or it's just something they decided to do. But there's that. So the last thing I noticed, and like I said, I noticed this while I was cutting the pieces out, while the color of plastic isn't extremely different, and I mean it is slightly different, but I mean it's not super noticeable. There is just something about the quality of the plastic on the Hasbro version, and that's this one here. This is the Takara version, that makes the flash markings just a little bit more visible. I find that where you cut the piece off of the runner, it causes discoloration a lot more than it did on the Takara version. I don't know exactly why that is. Maybe it's the way the plastics were mixed or something, but that is something that I noticed as I went on. The flash marks, while most of them will be covered up by stickers, just seem to be more visible for one reason or another on the Hasbro version, and I don't really know why, but with all of that said, let's actually start putting things together here, starting with the IBA body. I'm making sure I get that right this time. So, starting with the parts that are already off the sprues, right out of the box here. And then adding these pieces as well. A little bit on top here. Gotta make sure the hold parts are in there. Again, those hold parts, I don't know why they're smaller. They just are. Again, it doesn't seem to change anything as far as the B-Daman performs. It's also worth noting that I don't really plan on doing an individual review on this B-Daman. Maybe I'll do a quick power comparison here, just to see if there's literally any difference in this video, so that I don't have to, you know, do an entire review for practically the exact same B-Daman. But we'll get there when we get there. Fortunately, these pieces here don't seem extremely tight, so that's nice. They're not super loose either. The feet are a little bit wiggly. The arms are kind of dead solid, so that's good. So there is the IVA body. This guy actually has a lot of pieces, just because, like, his barrel section has like 2 pieces, his magazine has 3, he has all these little rubber bits that go on, he has the extra tail piece, so there just seems to be a lot more going on here, a lot more individual pieces with Dragogale, which makes him kind of interesting. Maybe not more of a challenge to put together, but certainly just a little more involved. Realizing I have to take the feet off here to attach the tail, but that's no biggie. So there you go. I apologize if I'm slightly off camera here. Next, let's do the headpiece here. Again, I prefer to assemble the visor over the head instead of assembling that on its own first and then attaching it to the head afterwards. If we can line things up properly. There we go. I do kind of think it's funny, a little silly, that Dragogale has the visor of the IBA body visible underneath sort of the headdress here. So while I guess these are the eyes of the B-Daman, it looks a little bit more like the visor is actually the eyes, and it's wearing some kind of headdress or some kind of mask that doesn't cover its face completely. So that's weird. But anyway, it's got these claws here. And I mean, you see what I mean? Like, the flash here is just like a little bit more visible here. And like, I try to kind of there's this technique, it's not very professional or whatever, but like I try to like scratch it to kind of like, I don't know, I don't really know the logic behind it, but sometimes it kind of gets rid of that discoloration by applying pressure with my nail, and it's just not working here. That discoloration seems like almost permanent, which is unfortunate, but oh well. Then you have the shoulder pieces here, which should just go on here. Am I doing something wrong? There we go. I just wasn't pushing hard enough, I guess. Oh, and like I mentioned earlier, like none of these parts have been dulled, which is kind of cool. I suppose if they had been dulled, the runners would have noted it. Like I said, the runner for the trigger and the hold part, you know, notes a difference by stamping Hasbro on it rather than just leaving it as Takara, because they made a change. And I suppose if they made any other changes, they would have done the same on like the runner that had the headpiece, if they did dull these edges here. It is kind of nice that they didn't, as I mentioned earlier. I like it, you know, obviously, when the US distribution of Japanese toys doesn't like dumb things down as much. And they certainly didn't used to dumb things down as much back in the day as they do now. Clearly evident when you compare the localized Battle B-Daman toys to the localized Crossfight toys, or I suppose Crossfire. Which is this the piece that goes on magazine. Yeah, I think so. Make sure all this is properly together. That's not quite even. There we go. And that goes on here. And then the barrel slides on like that. And there you have Dragogale. Not a whole lot different, as I mentioned. Very similar to the Japanese version. So here they are side by side, and can you tell them apart? Honestly, the color is a fair bit more different than I expected it to be initially. Once they're fully built and right next to each other, this guy's a much deeper shade of purple than this one over here. If you couldn't tell, this guy is the Takara version, and this one is the Hasbro version. And I don't know how well the difference is showing up on camera, but to the naked eye, there is clearly a differentiation. There's some things I actually like better about the Hasbro version. This could just be quality control, but the rubber parts stay in a whole lot better over here. Also, I do like the color a bit better despite it showing off the flash marks maybe a little bit more. To put things in perspective, here is the Hasbro Lightning Con, and I don't know if the Takara Bloody Kaiser is a lighter shade of purple or not, but the Takara Dragogale and Lightning Con are a shockingly similar color of purple. The shade is almost identical, and the fact that the Hasbro Dragogale is a little bit more different than the Hasbro Lightning Con adds a little bit of variety up on the shelf, which is especially a good thing since I plan on having this guy on the shelf instead of this guy because most of the other ones are the Hasbro versions, and I want them to match. But without further ado, I did promise a power test, so let's get to that. Kicking things off with Takara, here's the first shot. 1.79 meters per second, 1.96, and 1.93. Moving on to Hasbro, and you're gonna have to trust me, this is in fact a different B-Daman. We get 1.98, 2.02, and 1.94. While the numbers are slightly different, these B-Daman perform very, very similarly. In hand, you're not going to notice much of a difference. So Hasbro did a really good job. However, I can't tell why Hasbro changed the hold parts at all. There really isn't a difference, and maybe Helio Breaker is slightly less powerful, but changing the entire line just a little bit because one B-Daman is maybe a bit stronger than you want it to be seems kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Despite the fact that I got this B-Daman for a very cheap price, at the end of the day, I guess hunting down the more rare Hasbro version really wasn't all that worth it. And that probably goes for most Battle B-Daman. Unless it's Excel Leon, Helio Breaker, or maybe Bloody Kaiser, I can't imagine they're gonna be all that different. So just get whichever is most accessible, whichever is easier to find or cheaper. Although, having two Dragogales does have its perks. So that is about it, guys, and this is IX RolloutReviews, signing off.